I am Steve Hobbs. I am your Secretary of State.
In the month of October, what is the Secretary of State primarily involved in this month?
Oh, elections.
Elections indeed. Elections nationwide are under the microscope. Students, like adults, are not immune to this conversation, and they want to know about the integrity of Washington's elections. So, we took to the road to collect their questions for Washington's chief election officer.
In what ways do Washington State's election security measures, such as mail-in voting protocols and the use of ballot drop boxes, balance the need for robust safeguarding and the imperative to ensure equitable access for all voters, particularly marginalized communities?
All right, well, great question. Guess what? They go hand in hand. First of all, vote by mail state. We are the envy of other states. Why? Because you don't have to stay in line. You don't have to take time off work or get daycare. You can vote in the security of your own home 18 days before the election, and sometimes longer if you're overseas. And the great thing too is if you have a disability, we have voting assistance units. We have the ability to send these units to your home so that you can vote the privacy in your own home. And on top of that, we are very secure. We check every signature. We're tied to different databases. You can actually go and visit an election center and see the vote process happening with your own eyes. So security and accessibility, they go hand in hand in elections here in the state of Washington.
Since Washington State is one of the easiest states to vote in and also to register to vote in, what process does my pre-registration or someone else's registration go through in order to ensure that it's actually me and ensure integrity in our elections?
Another good question. Well, because we have your signature on file. What the new law is when you're going up to the Department of Motor Vehicles because you're getting your driver's license or learner's permit, and you sign your name, you're going to be pre-registered at that point. Obviously, they're going to ask you if you're a U.S. citizen and if you're eligible to vote when you're 18. And then that information is held by the state. We have your ID, we have your signature. That's how we can tell if it's you.
Can you explain how the staff verifies a signature's authenticity and how many staff members are required to do so?
When you sign your ballot and it goes through the mail and it actually reaches the election center, you have two people there who are trained by the State Patrol to look at your signature. And your signature actually comes up on the screen, so we match it to see if it's you or not. And if it isn't, well, then it gets rejected, but you give it a chance to cure your ballot. And when I say cure your ballot, that means they're going to send a letter in the mail, or depending on what county you're on, maybe you can do it with your phone, but you'll be able to sign again your signature to verify who you are. This process is really good, and only less than 1% of the signatures get rejected, usually because, as time goes on, your signature changes, or you forget to sign your ballot. So that's why you don't forget to sign your ballot. You got to sign your ballot, because if not, your ballot will definitely get rejected.
Sometimes people worry that ballots are falsified or signatures are falsified, so I was wondering how often these ballots are actually falsified and if these falsification rates have increased in recent years.
There have been times where we have caught people signing for other people's ballots. Now, it's not intentional. Sometimes it's your mom or your dad, and you're going off to college, and your mom decided to sign your ballot because you forgot, shame on you, and she signed your ballot. Or your dad signed your ballot. Well, we're going to find out that it wasn't you, and you'll just simply get a notice or a text message if you signed up for text messaging that your signature has been rejected, in which case you'll have to cure your ballot again. So that's how it's done here in the state of Washington. Now, when you're talking about fraud and people voting in the same election twice, maybe somebody had done that. And actually, we have caught people who have done that. And we catch people because our state is part of ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center. So think of it as a database that talks to other databases. Several states are on this. So we actually caught somebody who voted in this state, in the state of Colorado, when they were a college student. Now, did that person go to jail? No, because they didn't know. Their excuse was, well, we voted locally here and we voted in the federal election in Colorado. Guess what? You can't do that It's a Class C felony. Don't do that. So they were talked to. They're not going to do it again. The other thing that we catch are, you ever heard the myth of dead people voting? Well, sometimes that actually happens where somebody signs the ballot, drops it off in the drop box, and then they die. It's sad, but it does happen sometimes. But guess what? It counts because they were alive at the time. And if it doesn't correlate right, where they actually died before, then we will know about that, right? Now, guess what? 9 times out of 10, what happens is the widow or widower, out of grief, signs for the ballot. So that's usually what happens. We catch that. And that is very low. It's like just a handful of people.
I learned that the validation of all ballots is a very complex process that is mainly operated by humans. How would you see the current voting process can be benefited from the modern AI technology, such as facial recognition?
How can artificial intelligence enhance or threaten the security of the upcoming election?
So, AI, guess what? It's a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, it can be used for evil. And so what we do is we encourage people to pause, and if you see something that doesn't seem right, then you should probably ask your elections director, your local election, your auditor, or the Secretary of State's office. But the other thing is there's a good side of AI, and that is we use AI to scan social media for false narratives. So if we see a false narrative, let's say, for example, hey, elections are being hacked, then we know to tell the public through our social media and through partners, our 39 county partners, the news media, to let people know, guess what? You can't hack into the elections because the tabulation machines are not connected to the internet. And if you don't believe me, go down to your county auditor's office and check it out for yourself. So I can also see AI being used in the future. I think one of the questions was, we know with humans validating these elections and everything. So perhaps in the future we can use AI to scan these signatures, and it quickly will retrieve these signatures from the database, compare the two to see if that person's real or not. If they're not, then it'll be rejected. They'll be sending a letter so that they would have to cure their ballot. So yes, AI can be used for good and for evil.
With disinformation campaigns becoming an increasing threat to the integrity of elections,
how does the Secretary of State's office work to address and correct many misunderstandings or common misconceptions about the ballot process in Washington?
and what specific strategies are in place to ensure that voters are receiving accurate information about voting procedures and results?
Misinformation. You know what the best way to get at misinformation, disinformation? Tell the truth. Tell people what's going on. You know, I tell you what, Secretaries of State, including myself, and elections professionals across the United States, for many decades, we have done a very poor job of telling about the very boring process of elections. We've told you when to vote. We've told you to get out your ballot, put it in the drop box. We've done all those things to kind of encourage people to vote. What we haven't done more of is telling you what the process is. So for example, we haven't really told people that, did you know you can come down to your county auditors and actually see the process going on? Did you know about ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, where you can actually communicate with other databases to see if someone's voted multiple times, or if they're registered in a different state, or they passed away? Did you know we check every signature? See, we haven't done that, and that's on us. But we're changing that. That's why we're putting out a public information campaign called Mark the Ballot, so that you know what's going on behind the scenes of elections. That way, we can lower the distrust and bring up the trust of elections. And then hopefully, at the kitchen table, you're telling your relatives and your friends about what goes on in elections.
And Mr. Hobbs, I read that you, as Secretary of State, was working to help educate voters.
And what changes would you like to make in the future?
Well, what I would like to do is continue with the public relations, with the information, the educating of voters. That's what we need to do. You know, it's unfortunate what happened on January the 6th, a couple of years ago, our nation's capital, here on our own capital as well. And part of that is people didn't know about elections. And so now we have to do our part in the office to spread the word about elections. Again, what people might think is boring is critical to knowing how democracy is being upheld in this state and the United States. But I can't do it by myself. I need your help to do that. Together, we need to protect our elections and protect democracy, and I can't do that without you.